Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Mark Steiner. Great to have you all with us. So here we go. Congress wants Trump's tax returns. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard E. Neal requested them all, or 6 specific things, but then Trump's Secretary of the Treasury, Stephen Mnuchin, sent this letter in response, basically saying no deal. Yeah, not going to get that from the IRS. IRS, of course, now being run by Charles Reddick, who is one of the nation's leading attorneys for people, some people might call tax cheats, will not turn over Trump's tax returns, writing that the committee's request is unprecedented, it's constitutionally questionable, and may have lasting negative effects for taxpayers countrywide. Yet, the 1924 Anti-Corruption Act says that Congress can ask for anyone's tax returns at any time. Now, this may go immediately to the Supreme Court or wind its way up to the Supreme Court. We don't know what that means. So what gives here? Well, our guest, who has been a financial regulator and is a professor of economics and law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, should know something about all this and can shed some light. Of course, we're talking about Bill Black, and good to have you with us, Bill. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I should also say the title of his book, because I love the title of this book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. That is one of the best titles in American history, I think. So let me just start with this. So both the chairman of the committee, in trying to get some tax returns from Trump, and Secretary Mnuchin talk about Section 6103, both using that as a defense why they should get the tax returns legally, and the secretary saying, no, you shouldn't have these tax returns because this is politicized and you don't have a legitimate reason. So what is this Section 6103 and what does it mean?
Well, it means the Democrats win, is the short answer. I was also litigation director of a major federal agency, and I'm a law prof as well. So what it says in the statute is while it isn't all of Congress that can request, it's the key committee chairs in the House and the Senate. This is the appropriate one in the House. So this is one of the consequences of the Democrats getting control of the House, that they're now in a position to make this request. And while the word I'm using is request, the statute is mandatory. It's not discretionary. It says when you receive this request, you shall provide those documents to the committee chair. So the Democrats have a clean winner. What's the origins of the statute? The origins of the statute are in the Teapot Dome scandal. And in history, there used to be a debate about the most corrupt administration in the United States, whether it was the Grant administration or the Harding administration.
Right.
The Harding administration is what brought us the Teapot Dome scandal. Teapot Dome was petroleum reserves. These were insider sales to situations where the Secretary of the Interior, the guy granting the oil leases and gas leases, was secretly on the payroll getting kickbacks. So it's just blatant corruption. And he was the first sitting cabinet level secretary of an agency to go to prison, for which he richly deserved. Okay, so there's no debate anymore.
And Mellon, by the way, just a digression, but and Andrew Mellon, the financier and financial tycoon of the day, was Secretary of the Treasury. You should add that as well, right?
Yeah, it was, again, another gang of thieves. Anyway, right. That used to be the historical debate. Who was most corrupt, Harding, Trump? Harding, Grant, and obviously the answer is Trump. Is the most corrupt and has his own cabinet, a band of thieves. Okay, so they desperately, of course, don't want to give up these tax returns, just as Trump has desperately not wanted to give up the tax returns, because the tax returns are every investigator's, financial investigator's greatest joy in life. They would reveal a ton of information that Trump is desperate to avoid criminal investigators having. And while we had assumed that the Mueller investigation really dug into his taxes The indications now are probably that actually didn't occur. So you can see why Trump would be particularly worried about it. Now, here's the real kicker.
Okay.
Mnuchin says that he's refusing on the basis of legal advice from the Department of Justice.
I was going to ask you about that. Yes, right. I mean, please explain that to us.
So, we already knew the Department of Justice under Barr was not representing the United States of America anymore. It's representing the Donald Trump against the people of the United States. But second, he's going to have to really do violence to the law. And he's going to have to do violence to the law in a way that really can come back and bite the Department of Justice in a bunch of different cases, right? Because he's going to have to, there are all kinds of statutes we use in the federal government. I was a Department of Justice lawyer as well.
Right.
And we say, hey, when it says shall, it really means shall. And the following thing must happen, and you didn't do it, and therefore you have the following consequences. Now the Department of Justice is going to have to say shall only sometimes mean shall.
Well, I'm curious what you think. What could the Justice Department have told him? I mean, what could be, if you were on the other side of this, what possibly could be the advice they gave him about why they could fight this legally?
Oh, I don't think they did give advice.
You think they made it all up?
No, yeah, this is a sham, right? And what they're going to therefore do, I predict, is say, we need to look beyond what the House of Representatives, in particular the committee chair, says they're doing, and divine what we think they're really doing.
Is that a legal term?
Yes, entrails, right? And they're going to burn these entrails, and they're going to say, we think they're really perfidious Democrats, and that they're really on a partisan witch hunt. And anytime we think they're on a perfidious witch hunt, we just say no, right? So it brings motive in where it is not brought in the law. And if you bring motive in, then all those nasty things that random members of the legislature say, like their racist rants and such,
right?
Well, then their statutes could be struck down as having racial animus. Usually that racist rant by a particular member is disregarded in judicial review. And indeed, that was critical to Trump winning in the Supreme Court, given all his racist statements about Muslims, right? The Supreme Court is saying, nah, and there they had an enormous record as to what was really going on and said, no, you can't look into the minds and motives of people. Justice Department is about to say, yes, you can. And you can say, I don't think they're good motives, and therefore the actions are unlawful, and I won't comply. And that's really super dangerous to the United States government once it's put back under honest leadership.
So in the letter that Steve Mnuchin, I always want to call him Munchkin. Stephen, excuse, I'm sorry. Stephen Mnuchin, and not Munchkin, Mnuchin. He writes, as you have recognized, the committee's request is unprecedented. It presents serious constitutional questions, the resolutions of which may have lasting consequences for all taxpayers, and say they consult the Department of Justice, and that the committee's statutory authority under Section 6103F is bounded by Congress's authority. Under the Constitution, the Supreme Court has held the Constitution requires that congressional information demands must reasonably serve a legitimate legislative purpose. So that's what he writes in his letter, correct?
Right.
And so clearly, I mean, to me,
only the last quoted sentence from the Supreme Court is not a lie.
But I don't understand. All right, as Joe average citizen reads this letter, it seems reasonable. People believe, you know what I'm saying? I mean, people say it's government overreach. So I'm curious how you think this could, what could be the arguments if they get before the Supreme Court that it could allow even the conservative justices on the Supreme Court to go along with the administration?
Okay, so it has to actually be, flipped around, because
please.
There's no reasonable argument that you can make in good faith on these facts. So, is Congress's power unlimited? No, right? So Congress has to do things that are at least related to congressional function. Is this, have the Democrats cited legitimate congressional functions in their request? Yes. Would they win under existing precedent 100% of the time? So for Trump to win in front of the Supreme Court even requires, A, that Trump and Barr ignore the law and reverse it, and then that the Supreme Court junk law and say, yes, we too are now, Trump Uber-alles types, and we will read anything into the Constitution necessary for Trump to win. And if that's it, then, it's basically game over on this phase of American democracy.
Finally, it's just kind of always mind-blowing about how this administration can keep kind of bypassing the law and turning it on its head. I mean, how long can this go on?
Well, let me give you a sense as a former Department of Justice lawyer.
Please.
First, that letter from Mueller, that's astonishing. You just don't do that, right? You do, in fact, pick up the phone. So you only do that when you have zero trust in the Attorney General of the United States of America. Wow. And second, now there's this letter from former prosecutors, which at the time we're talking is up, I think, to like 400 signatories. And it is simply correct. If you took the facts of the Mueller report and applied them to anybody other than the President of the United States, no ifs, ands, or buts, you indict for obstruction of justice, and it's 10-count indictment, and it's a clean winner. And remember, the only reason they're not indicting is because the president's own legal shop, the Office of Legal Counsel, has written these incredible opinions saying, no, presidents are immune while they're in office. They can commit crimes with impunity other than impeachment, right? The department, the justice system can't actually reach them. Now, that's absurd. And here's a thought experiment. What if Trump really made good on his boast that he could go out in Fifth Avenue and murder a random passerby?
I remember that.
Is anyone seriously going to say that the Department of Justice would say, well, we got this OLC opinion, I guess we can't do anything?
Well, Bill Black, on that note, we'll have to pick up on this one again as soon as we see how this unfolds. This is just fascinating to me. Bill Black, thank you so much once again for your thoughts and work. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
And I'm Mark Steiner here for the Real News Network. Thank you all so much for being with us. Take care.